This is Lake Woodruff National Wildlife Refuge, and we're going to take a boat tour to Spring Garden Lake. So come join us.
And those were the Mayaka, M-A-Y-A-C-A. So we're going to go on an adventure and see what they saw. Now, something that could be here today, but we probably will not see, are manatees. Manatees love to travel. Freshwater, saltwater, it does not matter, just as long as the water is above 68 degrees. And then when it gets colder than that, they do have to be at one of the warm water sources here in Florida. And that's because even though they're very large animals, they have very little blubber on them. They don't have that insulating layer of fat like walruses have. So the water gets cold, they get cold, and if they're not somewhere warm, they get hypothermia or cold stress. This park here does not get many manatees, and it's because the waterfall, once the air hits the water, it cools the water down, and it's not that nice 72 degrees that they like. So if you want to get a really good look at a manatee and it is cold out, go down to Blue Spring State Park. It's 20 miles south of us in Orange City. We had a cold front come through this past January that a record number down there that day. It was 932. Crystal clear water down there. You stand on a boardwalk overlooking everything. Sorry, I was just picking up a piece of trash there. This is the lagoon area. As soon as we turn the corner, we'll be in Spring Garden Lake. I'll go over all the waterways as we go along out here today. And we'll talk more about the lake in a couple minutes when we can see the entire thing. From here, we're just seeing a portion of it. We have an alligator swimming in the water up in front of us. There's also one off to the left side there. And we do also have a bird that's in the corner on the right side over here. It's kind of white and blue in color. It's just a couple feet up above the water on the right side in the corner. That's a little blue heron. They are born all white, and then it takes them 2 years to turn dark blue in color. Now, the reason they're born white instead of blue is because the adult little blue heron and the adult snowy egret, they don't get along. They compete for food. So when they're born white, this snowy egret thinks it's one of their own babies, and they help stir up the bugs and the greens for them. The bird we're talking about is off our right side there, maybe a foot or two up off the water. It's white and blue. This one's in the calico phase. So he was born last year, March or April. He started his color transformation earlier this year, and at the end of this year, he's going to be completely dark blue when he's done. That's the little blue heron. All right, and our alligators, the bumps you see on their backs, those are called scutes. It's S-C-U-T-E-S. That's their armor plating and solar panel. Just the head is showing, let's say he's got about 7 inches there. That means he's 7 feet long, 7 years old. So they do grow 1 foot a year until they're teenagers, then they stop growing lengthwise. Sunlight heats up the blood vessels and capillaries, gets the blood flow moving, and that's what gives them energy. Now to measure an alligator, when you can't see the whole animal, you just have to see that side profile view of the head, and you guess the distance in inches from the tip of the nose back to the eyes. We do also have 2 birds that's on our left side over here. They're brown with white spots. They're on the bank over there. Those are limpkins, L-I-M-P-K-I-N. John James Audubon saw and painted those first limpkin here in 1832, and the Mayaka Indians referred to those birds as chuleupe, or crying bird, because the male Mayakans thought it sounded like a lady in distress when it squawks. In the U.S., you can only find these birds in Florida and a little bit of southern Georgia. Otherwise, you have to go down to Central or South America to find them. And these are the limpkins, and they walk with a little limp. If you haven't found them, there's a brown dead palm frond that goes down onto the ground there. The bird is just to the left of it.
Oh, yeah.
There's one of 3 reasons why the mullet jump. The first is they think they're being chased by something, so they're trying to escape being eaten. The second is they're bottom feeders, and they sometimes get parasites on their gill plates, so they try to knock those parasites off when they fall back in the water. And the third one, which is my personal favorite, is they're very happy fish, and they're jumping for joy.
So when you see people fishing, they're fishing for
because they were here first. They were here before it became a state park in 1982 and before the National Wildlife Refuge in 1964. And yes, they are able to sell to whoever they want to. It does not have to go to one of the parks. The old wood boathouse falling into the water there on the left, that's been here since the 1950s. Over the years, the storms have taken a toll on it, and about 3 summers ago is when the front end collapsed on there. I don't think the people that live there really care to do anything about it. They can easily tear it down, but to rebuild it, they'd have to go through a lot of special permitting. The area just past there with that really long dock and the yellow environmental barrier, that used to be Tedder's Landing. It was an old Florida fish camp where you could buy your bait, your ice, launch your boat, come out here and do some fishing. It's no longer a fish camp though, because it was sold a couple years ago. The new owners do have intentions of restoring it back to one, but they say it'll take a couple more years for them to be able to afford that. We'll have some big leafy green plants coming up on our right side here. This plant is called Spatterdock. We're going to talk more about that plant along with our other water plants a little further on in the tour. There's a place where they flower up here I'd like to show you. That plant, though, it is rooted into the bottom. It's only 1 to 1.5 foot deep there. Where we're going across the lake, we'll be lucky to have about 2.5 feet of water. Now, even though it is shallow, if you were to try to stand in here, there's 6 foot of muck under there, and every step you take out here is like stepping in quicksand. You'll sink further and further in. You might see some little birds fluttering up down above the plants on the right. They're either black or brown in color. Those are boat-tailed grackles. The boys are black, the girls are brown. Those will be the birds you find back in the park, and if anybody leaves a bag of chips unattended, open or unopened, they will find a way to open up the bag, take the chips out while you're swimming. And again, this waterway is Spring Garden Lake. It's 1.5 miles long. Way down there on the left at the end of the lake, that is the start of the Lake Woodruff National Wildlife Refuge hiking trail. It's 3 miles out to the river, 3 miles back. It goes around impoundments, which are kept at varying water levels, depending on what bird is residence at that time of the year. Over 215 different species of birds have been accounted for in there. If you want to go, it's free and it's open to the public. And if you're not that adventurous for the 6 miles, they do also have a 1.5 mile loop at the beginning, where you usually see alligators, turtles, birds, and sometimes river otters or marsh rabbits running around. Again, that's down at the Lake Woodruff National Wildlife Refuge. A marsh rabbit, if you don't know what that is, it kind of looks like a cottontail, but they got shorter ears and they don't mind swimming. There are ospreys flying on the left side there. The ospreys are also known as the fish hawk or fish eagle, because when they sit in a tree, they look like mini eagles. Ospreys. We are entering Spring Garden Creek. This is a distributary of the St. Johns River. The St. Johns is 310 miles long. It's the longest river within the state of Florida, and it's a special river because it flows backwards. The reason it flows from south to north is because where it starts down near Melbourne, Florida, it's 30 feet higher in elevation than it is in Jacksonville where it ends. This is our great blue heron on the left side there. Again, that's our tallest bird out here on the water. We're going to go over to the right side here. We're going to have some little pink flowers. They're going to be, if you're sitting down there at your eye level, right where this front row of main vegetation ends is where they're at. Those marshmallows didn't look like what we have in the stores today. Theirs are more of a consistency of toothpaste. And they weren't as sweet as what we have today. They didn't put any of that added sugar in there with them. As we go along out here, you might see, oh, there's a great egret in the back there. The great egret is our second tallest bird out here on the water. 3.5 to 4 feet tall, weighs in between 3 and 5 pounds. So we're looking kind of back where the little pink flowers are. He's in the little plants there. That one is the great egret. And what I was saying before we saw him, I get sidetracked here a lot, just so you know. The bright red flowers you're going to see out here along the edges, it's called scarlet hibiscus. And now that I'm saying it, I'm not seeing any over here, but they're usually by the tree lines. And we'll talk more about that flower a little further on in the tour. There's a place where we can get a little closer to them, and we'll talk about them then. But if you see a big bright red flower along the edge somewhere, that is the scarlet hibiscus. And we do have some trees changing color out here today. That's our red maple or the water maple. In the fall, the leaves turn bright red on those trees before they drop for the winter time. And then in the spring, when they get their new leaves, it's a bright red, kind of like a flowery type leaf that turns orange and then green for the summer. So we do get two major color changes back here, once in the spring and once in the fall. Now when the trees change color during the summertime, that means something's wrong with them. They're very stressed out. They don't like all the hot weather we're having. We've been seeing this happen more and more over the summertime, where they do change colors during the summer. They do not lose their leaves at this time. They just go from green to red back to green again. So whenever a tree changes colors, that's its way of making energy. It's producing sugar, and that will sustain them through the rest of the summertime. And usually when these birds sit out of the water, they have their wings out to the side to dry them. And the reason they do that is because they have no preening glands. There's no oil in their feathers. If they had the oil, they wouldn't be able to swim underwater to catch the fish. They just float at the surface like a life jacket. So the real reason they need to dry their wings is that a mold, mildew, or parasite grows in her feathers. This one is a girl because she's got a light brown chest and neck. Boys are all black. And these birds will get a beautiful white pattern that goes down the back of the wings. It tells us they're mature birds. Starts out as a white spot on the shoulder. Then the older, more mature the bird is, the further down the white pattern goes. So it's kind of like gray hair in people. And this one, when she puts her wings out, they're not very impressive because she's in the process of molting, which means she's going to get rid of her old wing feathers and grow new ones in its place. Now at some stages when they molt, they can't fly. They can still swim underwater to catch their prey, and then they can hop out of the water to escape predators. The whole molting process will take about 2 to 4 weeks. 2 to 4 weeks for them. And I'm not sure she can fly right now with the way that her wings look. And the closest living relative to that tree are the redwoods out in California. And they do get much taller than that. They're also the tallest trees in the tree line here on the right side. Now those smaller circular shaped plants you see in the water out here, you might have that plant in your yard at home. They call it dollarweed. Once it hits the water though, it becomes pennywort. It's the same type of plant, two different names depending on where it's located at. Both pennywort and dollarweed are edible. They're supposed to taste like parsley. I don't recommend trying this stuff in your front yard though, because a lot of people put chemicals on their lawns and you don't want to be eating all the poison. And they say if you do have dollarweed in your yard, that means you're overwatering your lawn. We're going to have an island coming up on the right side there. That's the end of our state park. It's only 625 acres. We are now entering the Lake George State Forest Preserve on the right, and on the left is still the Lake Woodruff National Wildlife Refuge. Combined together, this is 30,000 acres of untouched North Florida. No homes, no boat docks, no condominiums out here. are born all brown, and then it'll take them 2 years to turn white in color. Now the reason they're born brown instead of white is to blend in with their surroundings. These are the birds you find in people's yards here in Florida, and locals call them yard chickens. Let me back up here. See another bird behind the island. This is the adult one. It's in the almost at the edge of the plants behind where the island is. These guys are always hard to pick out because they blend in. And I can't get close to them because it's too shallow, but
Right.
we're looking right behind the island, the dark blue.
There he goes.
They do think we have about 1,500 alligators here in the refuge, 1.5 million statewide. Most encounters with alligators here in Florida occur on golf courses, so if you play golf and your ball goes in the water, I suggest you take a penalty stroke. And if you're visiting here in Florida, just assume every waterway in Florida does have an alligator in it. All they need is a water depth of just 1 foot to survive it. Summertime out here is our hardest time for finding alligators because the water's so warm. It ranges anywhere from the 80s to the 90s, and when that happens, so the alligators are quite comfortable in the water. They don't have to be out in the sun to keep warm, and they actually prefer to be down in the muck and mud where it's cooler. They can spend 2 hours underwater on a single breath of air. These 2 big blackbirds that are flying just above the trees on the right side over here, those are vultures. We do have 2 different types of vultures here in Florida. We have a black vulture with a black head and then a turkey vulture with a red head. Usually on the dead animals, you find the turkey vulture first because they have an excellent sense of smell. They'll be followed by the black vultures who hunt mostly by sight alone. And if by chance you ever hit one of those birds with your car, make sure you wash your car off right away because the stomach acid of the bird will eat away at your car paint. And just because you see it flying around above you does not necessarily mean there's a dead animal down below. Sometimes you'll find a little warm pocket of air up there. It's called a thermal. When they find them, they can go from the warm air to the cold air back and forth. They don't have to flap their wings at all, and they don't lose any altitude. And they don't just eat dead animals. If you have a bad banana or moldy piece of bread, you toss it out your back door, they'll come down and get it. And if they're flying up above you and you want to know if they're a black vulture or a turkey vulture and you cannot see the color of their head, you can always look at the bottom side of the wings. It's just the wingtips are white, that's a black vulture. If half the length of the wing is white, the other half is black, that's the turkey vulture. Now for the most part out here, trees and vegetation on the left side of the boat are a bit shorter than those on the right side. That's because the area on the left is known as Jones Island. And in the early 1900s, they cleared it all out and used it for cattle ranching. The south end of the island was dredged, and they used that waterway for steamboat travel to go from the river up to the park area and back. It's much quicker than using the Twisty Creek here. In 1964, it was purchased by the federal government to become part of the Refuge system, and they purchased it using profits they made from selling duck stamps. They've been trying to restore it back to its natural habitat ever since then, and it's technically no longer an island because they don't dredge that south end anymore, and it's been filled in over the years with silt sediment from the river. Because that is our wax myrtle, and wax myrtle is a natural insect repellent. Settlers out here at nighttime, if they needed light in their cabins, they could boil the leaves and the berries of that tree. The top of the water, wax is left over, they'd skim that off and make candles with it. And we're going to have some more good examples of our bald cypress trees coming up on our right side. They're going to be the tallest trees that are at the edge with the needle-like leaves on them. Down below the base of these trees are going to be fluted or flared out, and it always looks like there's new trees poking up out of the surface of the water in there. That is the root system of the tree. It's called a cypress knee, and the reason they have those knees is for stability during times of high water, and it also allows allows the tree to breathe when it's high water as well. And no, the cypress knees will not grow into new cypress trees. Now on some of the cypress knees and the trees here, a couple inches up above the water, you might see some white or pink splotches over here. It kind of looks like bird poo on the side of the trees, or somebody stuck their bubble gum to the side. Those are snail eggs. Mama snail climbs up there at nighttime. She lays between 15 to 20 eggs. She goes back in the water. 22 days later, those eggs pop open, the larvae drops in the water, and then the snail in the shell starts to grow as one. Now, if you get a chance today and you're interested, check out our visitor center for the park. It's going to be in the long brown building on the left side. It does look deceiving when you walk up to it because it looks like a retail store. All along the walls, the retail store, the history for the area. They go over from the storms. They went out of the waterway here to go lay eggs, and then on their way back to the water, they got scared by something. They went to the closest waterway they could find, and unfortunately for them, that was the swim area. They are stuck in there now until somebody can catch them and bring them over to the other side. They're quite comfortable though. They have plenty of warm water, plenty of food to eat. They just can't physically get out of the water by themselves because the walls are tall and made of concrete. You really have to look at the size and the number of the eggs to determine if they're invasive or not. And I say that because a lot of Floridians like to kill invasive things, and they're actually killing some of our native snails as well. We do have an alligator close to the boat on the left side over here, or kind of in front to the left, just a little bit, hanging out there. When the alligators are born, they're 5 to 7 inches long. They'll start out eating bugs and small fish, and then the larger they get, the larger the prey items get. An adult gator would be happy to eat another alligator, fish, turtles, small animals, lizards, snakes, frogs, pretty much anything that moves to eat. They rarely take birds though, because there's not much meat on them, but if they're sick or dying, or the bird runs or swims in front of them, yes, they will still grab them. When the water temperature out here gets below 68 degrees, the alligators will actually stop eating because the digestive juices in their stomach stop working. So if they were to try to eat when it's cold out, it'll sit in their stomach and rot and make them sick. So they live off the fat of their tail while it's cold. Now we're turning here, but if we were to continue on down the waterway another 2 to 3 miles, we'd be in Lake Woodruff. We could follow the top of that along into Tick Island Creek. Tick Island Creek will take us to Lake Dexter, and then Lake Dexter takes us to the St. Johns River. Another 110 nautical miles north, we'd be in Jacksonville and out to the Atlantic Ocean, and we could go anywhere we wanted to go from there. The Mayaka Indians that lived here, they did just that. They traded with the other Native Americans of the offshore Carolinas, Hispaniola, Cuba, and the Bahamas. And those were not week-long trips or month-long trips. Those trips lasted 1 to 2 years. And at the opposite end of Lake Woodruff, there are supposed to be 3 Native American shell mounds that radiocarbon date older than the pyramids of Egypt. And those shell mounds would only be accessible by a boat. We've stopped here because we had a bird that's in the water in front of us. It went down. We're hoping it pops back up. There it is in front of us. It looks like a snake. That is our anhinga or snake bird. It went down again. And this one is an adult bird because it's got the dark blue patch on the shoulder blade. And the brown spots you're seeing in our plants out here, the Army Corps of Engineers came out here and they sprayed an invasive plant that we have. They say it only kills the plants. I'm not sure. There's the water in the form of fish, turtles, alligators, mussels, clams, escargot or snail, and all these large leafy green plants here. They slowly pull them out of the water. At the bottom there's a tuber, a root. They dice it, boil it, eat it. It tastes like a potato. You might see some yellow flowers in here towards the edge that kind of look like tulips that don't quite open, or a large buttercup. They take a handful of those flowers, dry them out, hold them over an open fire, and then they pop like popcorn. And the name of this plant is spatter dock, or cow lily, C-O-W, cow lily. So it's not a typical water lily with open spiky flowers. These guys are always round and closed. And I've heard the leaves of them are edible. People cook them like collard greens. So you can essentially eat every single part of this plant. Now, I've never tried it myself, but I do know 2 ladies that have tried the root system. One of them cooked it like a mashed potato. She said it was a lot of work to get a little bit of potato out, but it did actually taste like mashed potatoes. And the other one, she sliced it very thinly. She put it in with pork or chicken, vegetables, and peanuts, and she cooked it in an Asian dish. She said it turned out fantastic.
Oh, there you go.
And I do only know one person that tried the flour trick. They didn't wait for the flour to completely dry out, so it's not going to pop with the seeds are wet. pharmacy for medicine because they did not exist. So they'd come over to the shorter trees on the right side, full row of feathers there. So that is another one of the girl anhinkas or snake birds. And I was saying March for alligators is courting season, April to May is mating, mid-June mama gator lays the eggs, and at the end of August the eggs hatch. So mama gator is ready to lay the eggs. She'll go inland where it's higher, drier, and sunnier. She'll dig a hole in the ground on like 30 to 50 eggs. She'll cover it back up with the dirt. She'll find leaves and branches and whatever else is laying around. She'll put that on top of her nest. And the reason she does that is because she's cold-blooded. She cannot sit on the nest to keep it warm like a chicken does. We're gonna have, and if it stays, no, just in front of us, that's an osprey. It has a fish underneath his talon. They will eat all the fish except for the tail and the fins, because the tail and the fins, because there's no meat on those parts, and they do also spit the bones out as well. Osprey. Our turnaround spot, but I want to show you some white flowers over here on the right before we turn. So we're going to have some white stringy flowers coming up on the right. They're amongst the vines over here. These white stringy flowers are called swamp lily. The flowers will bloom for about a week, and then that flower is done. They will get other flowers on the same plant though. It just takes a couple more days for those to open. And then they'll bloom throughout the summertime here. So that is the swamp lily. Now we are going to go a little faster to get across the lake here. There's not much to see in this area. We'll slow back down once we get by the tree line up there.
As we speed our way back, I hope you enjoyed this time with us at Spring Garden Lake and Spring Garden Creek at the Lake Woodruff National Wildlife Refuge. If you did, please click like, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you on our next adventure.